Okay, welcome everybody. It means so much to me that you all took some time out of your day to be here with us and to be here for yourself to learn what it might be like for you to up the game on your speaking career. And so that's why we have wonderful Wendy Babcock with us today. And first of all, for those of you who don't know me, I want to make sure I always forget this. So I want to make sure I say I'm Amy Collette. I am a founder of the Unleash Your Inner Author program, and you can see all these beautiful books behind me, including Krista's and Sarah's and Vicky's and so many people on the call today, and soon to be some other ones. They have all been through my program to get the book from their head onto the page and into the world, into the hands that need it. So thank you for all of you authors and aspiring authors and speakers who are here today. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Wendy. So Wendy and I know each other from a wonderful group called the Idea Collective. And I've just been impressed with her program and what she does to help authors get their messages out into the world. And that's what we're all concerned with, is we all have amazing messages, stories that we want to share. And so we want to find more ways to do that. And that's what Wendy's going to help us with today. So here's a little bit about Wendy. For over 7 years, Wendy Babcock has been getting paid to speak on stage. She is an international and TEDx speaker, author, and the paid stage speaker coach, helping entrepreneurs create additional income through paid speaking. She believes in kindness first, positivity always, and that authenticity in your voice makes the world a better place. So I think we can all resonate with that. And Wendy.
Yeah.
Glad to have you here.
Thank you so much. So just quick question. Who here has done some speaking already? Oh, quite a few of you. Awesome. Cool. And you can unmute, but I'm just curious. So what topics have some of you been speaking on? Is it to promote your book? Is it for coaching clients? Is it like a free stage and giving an offer?
I worked for an organization called Boomers Leading Change for 6 years.
Okay.
And I did presentations, and it was like the front door to invite people to come in and take a closer look at the organization. So it was not paid work. And I have done some paid along the way, but that's been my last big chunk of speaking.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Who else? What type of speaking have you done? Creativity and innovation, Lauren says. Looks like John spoke on fraud. That's interesting. Okay, so there's 4 types of stages. So I'll just kind of go into that. So there's 4 types of stages. There's speaking for free, presenting an offer, a lead magnet, some kind of freebie. And that's usually when you're trying to fill programs and sell products, that sort of thing. So maybe if you have a book, right, and you're promoting it, you might get on stages to promote your book, tell your backstory, a bit about your book, and then maybe give an offer. Maybe it's a link to the e-version of your book, right, to maybe help you with your statistics on Amazon or wherever you're promoting your book at. The second one is pay to play. And most speakers that I know are very resistant. I was too, at paying to be on someone's stage. But this is how I think of it. Now, we all kind of have our own ideal client, right? The person who maybe is going to read your book or, sign up for your programs and products, right? We know who that person is. Imagine somebody curated an audience for an event that had 100 of your ideal clients in that audience, and you could be on that stage in front of all of them. Would you pay $500? If you knew you could make, that's what pay to play is. And so I was really hesitant at first because I didn't fully understand what it was. I'm like, why would I pay someone when I'm bringing value and I'm teaching their, so it was a mindset shift for me. And now I see it. It's a sponsored stage. It makes sense. The third way is creating your own stage. And that can be as simple as a Facebook Live. It can be a webinar, a masterclass, a full-blown live event, in-person event, where you get to be kind of the star of the show. So that's creating your own stage. And the one that I do, the one that I've been doing for 7 years, is getting paid to speak. So if some of you have already done that, basically, so my main audience is associations. Of course, corporations, businesses, schools, universities, they might have budgets as well. But really, associations is where it's at for me. They love my topic of complaint-free world. And, you know, we negotiate a fee, then I come out and I speak for them and I get paid no matter what. So as opposed to pay to play or the free speaking, you know, you might invest in traveling somewhere, and unless you're really great selling from the stage, you may walk out, you know, kind of in the hole financially. You just never know. If you're a great speaker and you can sell, you can make six figures from that stage. It's amazing, you know, but there's a little bit of a, you know, a chance you're taking. But with the paid stage, it doesn't matter if I'm in front of 2 people or 2,000. I get paid no matter what.
Right.
So
Hey, Wendy,
just yeah.
Can I interrupt and have you talk a little bit about how you got started with Complaint-Free World and getting paid to be on stage? Because it's
You
just,
know,
I think it's just interesting for all of us to know a little bit of your backstory and
perfect.
what that looked like for you.
It was a complete fluke. I never set out to be a speaker. I never wanted to be a speaker. I worked at a hospital for 20 years, and not even like as a nurse or someone who dealt with people. I was up in the corner of an office in a cubicle doing medical transcription and then medical coding. So I really didn't even talk to people most of the day. But I listened to personal development books all the time while I worked. Not when I did transcription, because obviously I can't listen to doctors and books at the same time. But when I did coding, I have kind of ADHD brain. So when I'm trying to focus on something, I still have those thoughts running in the back of my mind about what am I going to make for dinner? What are the kids doing? All of these things. So I listen to audiobooks. So what happened was I was listening to Pam Grout's book, E Squared. And in her book, it was just a few sentences. She mentioned Will Bowen and the complaint-free movement. And I stopped the Audible. And all I could think was I was trying to really push negativity out of my life at that point. And I thought, what's more negative that we do than complain? So I was just really drawn to this, what she said. And so I went to Facebook, I looked up the author, and call it fate, being in the right place at the right time. Will Bowen had posted, you know, I've been on Oprah, People Magazine. He said, I've tried to share this message with millions of people, but so many have never heard of it. So I want to train 10 people to do what I do. And here's where you can apply. And to this day, I can't really tell you why I applied. I mean, because I wasn't a speaker. I think, excuse me, I think part of it was thinking I would never get picked. You know, the chances of me in little rural Wisconsin, where I was at, working at a hospital, like, they're not going to pick me, right? But then 2 weeks later, I get a phone call, or I'm sorry, an email from his daughter, his assistant, Leah. And she's like, hey, and that's back when we were doing Skype, not Zoom. Hey, I want to do a Skype interview with you. I'm like, okay. And, you know, just from there on out, I got chosen for, you know, the training. And it's crazy to look back on and think, I felt like such the low man on the totem pole when I got in that group of 10 people. We met every week for 16 weeks on a Saturday morning, but everyone else had some kind of speaking under their belt and I didn't. I mean, unless you count high school forensics, and I graduated in like 93. So, I mean, it'd been a lot of years. So I don't really consider myself a speaker from that. So I had no following, no celebrity status, none of that, but Will gave me everything I needed to get on stages. And so that I learned about Will in January 2017. I got certified. I went to Missouri to his home. He certified all of us who went through his training in June that year. So he recorded our speaker reels for us. And by September, I quit my full-time job at the hospital. And it was kind of a leap of faith because I couldn't do the things I needed to do to get my speaking career going because I was working full-time. And I had 2 kids at still, I think they were in like high school at that time, my girls. So, I mean, I just didn't have time to be applying and going and speaking. So I'm like, something's got to give. So unfortunately, I lost my father that August, and that was kind of the catalyst. It was kind of that moment we all get into, we lose somebody close. I was like, life is too freaking short. I need to just, you know, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. So we did what everyone told us not to do, and I pulled my 401k. So we had a cushion to live on while I got the speaking gigs, and it was a roller coaster. But yeah, and I haven't looked back. I've done that since that time. So that's a little backstory.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Wendy. And now it's inspirational to me that you're now sharing the gift with others.
Funny story about that
us.
too. Yeah. And it's crazy even because during the pandemic, I had to switch gears a little, right? Because there was no live audiences. And so I had some big gigs. I was supposed to talk at Lambeau Field that May in 2020. And I was so excited for that. And then it got canceled. And so I was like, no. So, when virtual, so I'm like, I need something else. I need to do. So I created this other business. It was a networking business. And I did that for a while. But then when things started to open back up, not only did I want to get back on stage, I wanted something that I could do to help entrepreneurs. And so my coach at the time, she asked me a question, and it just kind of was, all the light bulbs go off. And I'm sure Amy helps you with that, with like working on your book. We're like, oh yeah. So my coach said, well, what do people ask you for? Like, what advice do people come to you for? And I said, oh, well, yeah, they ask me how to get on paid stages all the time. She goes, oh, so what does that look like? I don't know. I'm like, I jump on a Zoom for like an hour and tell them what they need to know. And she said, well, how much do you charge? I'm like, well, I don't. And she just like, you could see she wanted to reach through the screen and like slap me, like, that's your thing. So, I mean, you can imagine like when you're creating your book and someone just gives you that aha moment, you're like, well, duh. So now I'm still going out and getting on the paid stages, but now I'm also, and it's only been about a year and a few months that I've been coaching entrepreneurs and service-based entrepreneurs and authors how to get on the paid stages. So yeah, it's been fun. I've been really enjoying it. I do one-on-one coaching, group coaching, that sort of thing. And it's been fun. I've met some really cool people in the process.
That's awesome, Wendy. So thank you. I know I kind of interrupted you to tell your backstory. So,
That's okay.
if you want to give us kind of, the overview about what we need to know before we start peppering you with questions.
Right.
Is there anything else we need to kind of, you said you were talking about the three different kinds of stages. And
yeah, the different type of stages you can be on. So when we're talking about the paid stage, there's a lot of kind of myths that go along with that. And maybe you thought that too, like you have to be a celebrity. No one's going to pay me to speak, that sort of thing. But again, I'm kind of proof of that. I didn't have any celebrity. I had done MLMs on social media back from like 2010. I was a Beachbody coach, So, I mean, I didn't have like a big following. I had some people on my Facebook, but it had nothing to do with getting on the paid stages at all. So that's a myth. The other thing is people think it's got to be industry specific type of talks. But I'm curious in the comment, what do you think? Okay, so when we're talking about associations, corporations, businesses, schools, universities, what do you think is the number one topic that speakers get paid to speak on? What do you think is the number one topic? Just, off the top of your head, what do you think?
Oh, across the board? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, kind of across the board. Like when people are looking for paid speakers, what do you think is the number one topic? Leadership, communication, change. People are always surprised by this. Goal setting. So excuse me, I like to follow the trends, and eSpeakers has a great graph where they tell you exactly what organizations are looking for. And across the board, every time I've looked at this, the number one topic is inspiration. And we're talking corporations, the businesses, the big businesses. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Think about, we probably all worked for somebody else before we became entrepreneurs or authors, and maybe you are working for somebody, right? And the boss is always harping at the team, right? The team leaders, he comes out all positive and like, all right, we're going to communicate better. Let's cut down on the drama and the gossip. We're going to be more productive, and here's some tools. But it kind of falls on deaf ears. Like, how motivated are you to do more and do better and all the things when it's your boss constantly harping, right? So what they do is they have this annual event. Everybody comes to, they bring in this inspirational speaker who, yeah, they're teaching them something, but they're basically all jacked up and ready to hit the ground running when they leave. And what does that do? That makes them more productive. It makes them have a positive mindset. So they communicate. So it does all the things that the bosses have been trying to get them to do, but it needs to come from a stranger. So that's kind of the reason why, because their return on investment of hiring a speaker booms. So it just makes sense. So yeah, I've heard this, that people are like, I want to be an inspirational speaker, but who's going to pay me? Well, you're in the number one topic that they're hiring for. So it's pretty interesting to me. And you guys all have a leg up. If you're writing a book, I always say authors have a leg up because it's going to be easier for you to write a signature talk than a coach or a consultant, because you already have the groundwork of how to lay things out, how to lay a story out, because storytelling is the most important thing you can do in a talk, because that's what people retain. That's the information. So I could give you 20 different statistics, and then ask you about like, okay, what were the numbers I gave you? You might remember some of them. But if I link a story to each one of those statistics, you're going to remember them much better. And so that's what speaking is. If you're teaching, you're giving things, but you're also just being a wonderful storyteller and you're being inspirational.
Wow, that is surprising, Wendy. That's really interesting. Because, Carlene put in the chat, I want to be an inspirational speaker, but coaches, etc., tell me that isn't practical or able to lead me to paid gigs.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely, it is. Inspiration is great. And because when we bring inspiration, I mean, we draw from our own stories, right? And usually the inspiration comes because of something that we've already been through and we've figured out tools and strategies of how to get out of that thing to inspire others. And that's all they're looking for. They want the tools and strategies, but they want you to educate, entertain, and inspire. That's what we do. And that's what they pay for.
Yeah.
And maybe these coaches are saying it's not going to bring clients in maybe, but I would even disagree with that. Because our inspiration is how we gain clients. It's how you build the know, like, and trust. And that's why people hire you. Because we generally teach an older version of ourselves. So yeah, and I think speaking should be. What if you self-published your book and it is still, wait, what if you self-published your book is that still looked at as a benefit? So I always tell people you don't need a book to be a paid speaker or a speaker, but it is leverage. It does increase the expertise in how people view you. I mean, people, right? So, I mean, you come across a speaker and, oh, they're really great, but then they say, oh yeah, I have a book. So what happens in your mind, they just leveled up a little bit because they have a book. So when you're negotiating fees, this is what I tell all my speakers. So this is a great negotiation tactic too. So if you have a book, self-published, professionally published, whatever that looks like, it doesn't really matter. You're negotiating a fee. Let's say your normal fee to speak is $2,500, right? For an hour keynote. And the organization comes back and says, we really only have like 1,000, right? And in your mind, whether you're going to travel. Let's say it's within your state, right? And they want you to travel, say it's a 3-hour trip to go speak for $1,000. In your mind, you already know if you're going to do it or not. But when you have a book, what you can do is, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll speak for $1,000, but can I have a table at the back of the room to sell my book? Or even better, because this is a separate budget for most companies, would you want to purchase one of my books for every one of the people in your audience? Right? So it's a great leveraging tool. It raises the expertise and the mindset of the people hiring you. Can't go wrong with a book.
That's
really
great.
can't.
At least one author on this call has done that. And that's something that I always suggest too, is that you can always use your book as leverage. But I wanted to add something. This was just gold that I got the other day from a PR, a media person in New York City, talked to last week. And I asked her my burning question, which is, does it help your people that she's trying to get, on TV and all these different spots? I said, does it help them to be published authors? And she said, absolutely yes. Without a doubt, becoming an author. And to go back to Nina's question, does it matter if you're self-published? She said no. She said most people are not aware of, unless you're in publishing in the big 5 in New York, nobody cares who you're published by. As long as you have a world-class, wonderful, well put together professional book, it helps you shine, and it gives you, like Wendy said, leverage to negotiate higher fees, getting paid on stage, and being able to have another income stream, which is selling those books in bulk to the organization or in the back of the room. If people, so I always say people fall in love with you a little bit on stage. And so then having your book helps them get to know you better and, find out if they want to work with you and they want to go deeper with your message. So.
Yeah, and that's a great way. If they can get their hands on your book, if you're saying in an association, you're speaking, you get off the stage, you're going to have some people that are going to look you up on social media. But when you have a book and they have their hands on your book, now you've just created a fan. And those associations then have the power to bring you into their organization, because an association is just a conglomeration of a bunch of organizations. So there's more chances for you to speak again, and there's more chances for not only for that organization to hire you, but also distribute your book. So yeah, having a book, I always say you can never go wrong having a book. Just write it. Just do the thing. I wish I would have had Amy with me when I wrote my first book, because when I wrote my first book, I was on my own. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I just had the mindset, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to worry if it's a bestseller. I'm not going to put too much weight into this thing, but I'm just going to do it so I have a book. And that's what I did. I mean, you learn through the process, of course, but just getting your mindset to not perfection and just putting that thing out into the world. And it's amazing the reception you'll get because people want to hear your stories.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Do. And on stage too. I mean, you don't have to be the most eloquent, most well-rehearsed speaker to make a difference and to make an impact on somebody's life.
That's a fact. And really, you see people who are, I like to call them differently abled, who are on stages speaking. You know, there's people, I follow a lady on TikTok who I'm a huge fan of hers now, but she has a stutter and everyone told her that she would never be able to speak publicly. She's got like 1.5 million followers on TikTok. And she is the most, I mean, she gets me all revved up. I listen to her TikToks and she's just like, you can do it and you've got this and don't listen to the haters. And she's just an amazing person. But she has a stutter and she was told her whole life she couldn't do it. So you don't have to be perfect on stage. I mean, you see comedians who there's I can't think of his name offhand, tip of my tongue, but he also has a stutter. He's a phenomenal comedian. So I see people all the time who I stumble over my words half the time, or I have a tickle since I've had COVID back in September. I still have this little cough, but I'm like, you know what? Most people will give you grace.
Yeah.
If you're being authentic, if you're bringing them value and inspiration, they will give you grace on those shortcomings or your perceived shortcomings.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we have a question in the chat too about Nina asked about she said, I've spoken on some free stages to inspire because of my story. I never crafted one signature speech. And I know you talk a lot about this, Wendy. So if you want to kind of talk about what a signature speech is, especially in light of a lot of us being authors or aspiring authors, what that might look like for us.
What's great is, okay, especially if you're going to base it off of your book, if you're doing like a personal development book or something along that nature, having that signature talk is really important because that's going to set you up as an expert. If you think about, like, if you go to just as I like to just use it as examples. You go to somebody's website who's a speaker, right? And they have 20 different talks and they're kind of similar, but they're kind of all over the place. Is your first impression, are you thinking, boy, they're really an expert at 20 different things? Or you're like, a jack of all trades, a master of none. So that signature talk is really important to have. That you can do other talks, but your signature talk has to be the one that helps build credibility, expertise. It lends to your book as well. And it should kind of go hand in hand with that book so that people, they can get value from the stage, but now also they can dive deeper into with your book because you can't obviously read an entire book on stage for all your knowledge and everything you have to bring. So that signature talk is important. And I teach people how to build their signature talk, but a great way to do this is, honestly, I like to basically go to YouTube, find my favorite speakers, like someone like Mel Robbins or Brene Brown, and just go through and dissect their talk. What are they saying? How are they opening their talk? The people that you're drawn to are usually how you're going to set up your signature talk as well. You know, if they add humor and you like that, you're going to add humor. Excuse me. So I go through and I dissect it. Even Will Bowen's, I've gone through his 1,000 times as I'm working on my own presentation for Complaint Free. How do they open? What's the teaching point? What are the story they're connecting with that teaching point? How are they transitioning between each segment of their signature talk? And it's just really important, especially in the world of speaking, to have that because, again, you are trying to build some notoriety around it. That's going to help you raise your fees, for one. And I saw somebody ask about reasonable speaking fees. Okay. So what's interesting is there's also mindset around this. Okay. I tell newer speakers they should not charge less than $1,500 for a speaking fee unless you're going to negotiate with your book or travel, or if you just really want to do some to maybe get your speaker reel, if you can record, there's ways you can leverage that, right? But from the go, I wouldn't ask less than 1,500. And the industry standard is around 2,500 for newer speakers. And that's for a 60-minute keynote. Now, a lot of companies will also add on a certain amount. It's something that you'll agree upon. They'll pay for some of your travel, and they'll pay usually up to 2 nights stay at a hotel. So, and I love when they do that, because the nice thing is some organizations have separate budgets. So here's a little trick. So if you're negotiating your fee, again, let's say you're charging them 2,500, they can only afford 1,500. Usually when they're paying for a speaker's travel, it's a separate budget. So therefore, you might be able to say, okay, well, can you give me 1,000 towards travel, especially if you're flying? So that kind of makes up that difference for you. So the industry standard for a non-celebrity speaker for a 60-minute keynote is a range of $2,500 to $7,500 for a 60-minute keynote. You know, and you're going to see higher end for people who have their signature talk. They're starting to get a little known, maybe referred more. They've got more speaking gigs under their belt. They're going to charge more. So when I started out, my first gig I remember asking $500 for a local school. And I thought, they're never going to pay me $500. And then they're like, okay, well, holy crap. I just got paid and I only had to drive like 15 minutes. So I was like, okay, the next one in my head, I'm like, all right, the next time I get a speaking gig, I'm going to ask for like $750, because it just was, you know, it was a lot. $750 is nothing to sneeze at. And they didn't even blink. And they're like, yeah, okay, $750, that works. And I just kept raising it, because there is a mindset. There's that imposter syndrome that's going to sneak up with giving your price. And the best advice Will Bowen gave me is, when somebody asks you to quote, you tell them the amount, and then you shut up. Because you will talk yourself out of that amount. You'll say, okay, my fee is 2,500, but if you don't, and that's what we do. And so if you just say my fee is 2,500, and then just wait for the response, and you're going to be able to gauge, because usually I tell people they should get on a phone call or a Zoom when they're booking that gig, because then now you're face to face, you're on a phone call. It does give you a better chance of booking the gig. You can see right away if it's in their budget or not. You know, so you should be already prepared. Like, okay, if they don't have this, what's my leverage? What am I going to do? Am I going to offer to speak for less? You can straight out ask them, well, can you share with what your budget is? So if they say, oh, wow, that's 2,500. That's a little far out of our budget. You can say, okay, can you share what your budget is? And we'll see if there's something that we can, you know, work together on to make this work. And they're usually willing to negotiate, especially if they really are impressed with you and they really want your subject. Can that be done if the book is autobiography? Yes. Because especially if you're telling an inspirational story, right? And you have lessons in there. And maybe those lessons are, I mean, for me, if I wrote an autobiography, I mean, I could have been on Jerry Springer honestly, for the things that have happened in my life. But there's lessons that you learn along the way. And who are you teaching? You're teaching people. Who are these companies employing? People. Right. And so the goal is inspiration. The goal is to give them some tools that they can implement in their lives. And that's what your autobiography does. I mean, I love autobiographies. You know, Amy Poehler's, Tina Fey's, I listen to all of them. And there's so many learning points inside their books, just as I'm sure yours are. See, how long is your signature talk? Generally, a signature talk is about 60 minutes. And the reason why I start with that, because of course, some people will want you to speak for 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes, and then a Q&A. I tell people to start with 60 minutes, because just, okay, as writing a book. Let's say you commit to writing a book and it's going to be a novel. And you have in your mind like how many pages, how many words that should be, right? But let's say somebody hires you now to write a separate book and they need it twice as big. Filling in content is harder than basically cutting it back. So start with an hour, because then you can narrow it down to 30 minutes. You have all of your content. Narrowing it down is easier than beefing it up, so to speak. So with the Kindness Bucket Brigade, I created this movement on Facebook, and I started getting speaking gigs for schools with this. I was teaching people how to bring kindness to fight online bullying. And I basically had created, because the first place that wanted to hire me, I didn't have a talk. So I had to create one for this half an hour spot. So I just would use that half an hour talk. But then when someone wanted me for an hour, I'm like, oh, I got to add a bunch more to my talk now. And I was like in full panic mode, like, what can I add now? You know? So I always say start with more and pare back. Excuse me.
That's
And you can work
brilliant,
with that.
Wendy. Yeah, that's really good advice because I think a lot of us also do shorter talks, maybe like 20 to 30 minutes and workshops. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your advice on, I know that pricing is different on that
Yes.
than for keynote speakers. Do you suggest we just do keynotes or how do you think we should handle that?
Well, this paid speaking arena is usually it'll be a keynote, workshops, and breakout rooms.
Mhm.
And they're all going to be priced a little differently. So usually a breakout room, it's part of the audience, not the whole audience. They won't have as much of a budget for those if they even have a budget for the breakout rooms. They usually save the money for the keynote speakers or the workshops. The workshops are just going to depend on how long they want you for and what you're willing to work for. So for example, um, I have a speaking gig coming up in Savannah, Georgia in July. And normally my 60-minute is what I would give. And they wanted, oh, well, we want 2 hours for 700 police chiefs, right? For this workshop, so I took my base fee and then tacked on half of what my base fee is. That's how I bulked it up, so just to throw some numbers out, say I'm going to charge them $5,000 for a 2 hour. I would probably charge 7,500 because it's more of your time. There's a lot more work in doing a workshop than just being a keynote. Because if you think about this, 700 is the biggest audience I've spoke to. Usually associations are 250, 300. And if you have a little bit of interaction, it's still difficult to get everyone kind of pulled back in after you've given them an exercise to do. So I'm a little nervous about 700 police chiefs, giving them something to do within the audience together and then kind of bringing them back to, okay, let's do the next thing now. So you have to take that into consideration when you're pricing them, for how much it's a little bit more work. So you're going to charge more and it's more of your time. Let's see. How do you find our talks or your places to talk? Okay. So this is great. So I actually have a free tool. I can give this to you if that's okay, Amy.
Yeah, that'd be terrific, Wendy.
Yeah. So I have 5 places that I find paid speaking gigs that isn't Google. You can Google to your heart's desire. You are going to find tons of speaking gigs. All you have to do is use your the keywords. Like if I speak to associations, so I might put in association annual event 2024 and see what comes up. And then I can go in and click on those, see where the event is, when it is, what it's about. Does my talk fit in there? And then I can reach out. But I don't like to spend a ton of time on researching because it's very time consuming. So I'm going to give you this, find paid gigs. So here's the free resource. One of these I am going to take off because I feel like it's getting a little sketchy. But the number one place that I find paid speaking gigs is a place called myspeakerleads.com. It's $20 a month. I don't have an affiliate link or anything, so I'm not making money off of this, but it's $20 a month. They send you 100 leads a week. And the great thing is it's in an Excel spreadsheet. They give you the name of the organization. They give you the email address of the person who's the organizer. They give you the website they give you the industry. They give you literally everything you could need to find these paid speaking gigs, right? Now, they're not all guaranteed paid, of course. So you have to do a little bit of homework on that. But I start with the industry when I get that list because I know which industries like the complaint-free movement the best. I've done this enough that I know that like the banking industry loves me. Really bizarre associations. I just spoke to the Railway Tie Association in Atlanta. Who knew that existed, right? I didn't know it existed, but like there's a bowling association that's reached out to me before. There's an association for everything. Okay. And they have budgets. It's crazy. So my speaker leads, the next one is a directory of associations. You can go right to Google and type in directory of associations. What I love about this is you can narrow these down. There's a search function inside of that. You can go by state, nationwide, industry, size of the organization. And then what I do from there is once I kind of figure out, like if I'm saying, oh, okay, I just want to find something in Wisconsin where I live, maybe this summer, I'll go through and find a couple associations. I click on their link. I go to their events tab on their association and look and see if they have an annual event because that's where they have the budget for speakers. And then I see if I might be a good fit and I reach out. So there's always going to be some legwork in it, even with that. The third best place you can do is if you're somebody who wants to speak, but you're kind of busy and you don't have time to reach out to say, 20 to 40, places a week or whatever, build a profile on Gig Salad. And that's on that list, gigsalad.com. I'll put here. It sounds funny, gigsalad.com. This is a place where people can find speakers. So basically, once you get this profile set up, people can find you. So this will just be working in the background for you. Right. So say an organization's like, oh, we really want to have a speaker for, our lunch and learn, in a couple months. And they just search, they don't think about what people are looking for. Hire motivational speaker in Google. Gig Salad might come up and they can go to Gig Salad. They can find the speaker they want and they can reach out. So it's a way for them to find you. The fourth way is Innovation Women. This one, of course, is for women, not men. But they do have a great platform where they really help you give you free tools. I think it's like $125 a year, which is pretty inexpensive for most places like this. They give you speaker leads. I think it's like I want to say Friday, they drop the leads. But then there's also lots of resources for how to get booked and paid, and they have different networking things with other speakers. So it's a great place. And the last one on my list, which I think I'm going to drop off, is called Thumbtack, because Thumbtack, I feel like they've gotten really greedy. So it's the same thing as Gig Salad. You put a profile, it's free. But what Thumbtack does is if somebody reaches out to you, they charge you for that lead, whether they book you or not. So it's, if they reach out to 5 speakers and you quote them or have any communication and they charge you. So recently, like last month, I had an organization reach out. They charged me $90 for that lead and I didn't get the gig. They just never responded to me. So yeah, so I don't like that Thumbtack went that direction. So I might drop that off my list. But Gig Salad is free. They do have a paid profile, a pro profile. And the benefits of the pro profile on there is the free limits you to 200 miles from your location of places that can search for you. It have to be within 200 miles of you. The free one is up to, I think, international. The pro, I think, it's a 3-month fee. I think it's like $168 for 3 months or something like that. Do you need it? I don't think so. The first gig I ever got booked on there was on their free profile, and it was local, and it was a $2,500 speaking gig. So, and that was on the free profile. So, I mean, it's a matter of if you just want to keep those local or if you want to go more nationwide or international for Gig Salad. So those are the places I use when I'm looking for gigs. Again, I Google. You can also go to, this is silly, Facebook and LinkedIn. Type in the search bar on Facebook, call for speakers. And you're going to see, you just got to watch dates and stuff. You can put call for speakers 2024, and you're going to find lots of events that are going to pop up. Both the free stages, paid stages, and the pay to play type of stages. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, that's great, Wendy.
Yeah.
So what about other agencies or bureaus, speaker bureaus? Have you found any of those to be effective or cost effective for you?
No, if you're not a celebrity, they're not as cost effective as far as getting booked, but I still tell my speakers to get on like Speaker Hub, eSpeakers, those platforms, because that's a speaker bureau, right? Get on the free profile for them, because what they do have is really great SEO. So if someone's looking for speakers, or let's say somebody just Googles your name and you're on their website, your name's going to come up higher in the search because they have really good SEO. So I tell people to get on those anyways. And again, it's a mindset thing. If let's say you apply for something and they're just going to try and check you out, right? They're going to Google your name and see if you're out there, if you're legit, if you're an expert. So the more profiles you have, because they have good Google SEO, you're going to come up in those search things. If they have to search by like page 3 and they're not finding you, you're not going to get hired. Right. So that's why it's important to have a website. It doesn't have to be crazy big. It could be a simple landing page. And I'm sorry, Laverne, it's Innovation Women. I'll put it in the comments. Innovation Women. But yeah, if you have those profiles set up and like with your landing page for your website, all you need for a website, honestly, is basically a landing page. It's got like your profile, your headshot. It's got a description of your talk title description, your 3 to 5 takeaways. It gives them like the benefits of hiring you, testimonials if you have them, a way for them to reach out and contact you. It doesn't have to be fancy. And
So
something
it's
that
really
people,
about visibility, right? It's just so you're visible, and it's
yeah,
like you're the real deal.
exactly. And if you have a book, your name will come up through, especially through Amazon or somewhere like that. Your name should come up attached to that book. So when they're searching you, I mean, just go out and search yourself on Google and see what comes up. Now, for me, it's tricky because there's another Wendy Babcock out there, and she was a very famous sex worker turned legal student. Unfortunately has passed. So she has a Wikipedia page, which will always come up over any of my pages. So that, yeah, that's always a fun one. Like I always tell them, if you search me, I'm not the first one that comes up. I'm not a former sex worker. So, you
Oh
know,
my gosh. Yeah. Well, yeah.
yeah.
Google is interesting that way. John asked a question. I'm not, John, you said, I heard you mention an organization that helped you develop video, etc. And I'm blanking on what that might be.
For like a speaker reel, maybe?
Uh, Amy, I think you mentioned it when you were giving us a little background about yourself at the very beginning. You talked about somebody who helped you develop videos of you speaking. Did I hallucinate? It's possible.
I don't remember doing that, John. I just, the way
It's likely, actually.
I've gotten snippets from speaking gigs just from, the professional video that's taken and things like that. So that's helped a lot. And
Okay, my apologies.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for asking the question.
And what's really great, the one gift the pandemic gave us too for speakers is your speaker reel can simply be you on a Zoom talking to yourself and act like you have 100 people on that call. Nobody knows. So, a lot of, they'll tell you, I mean, people who produce like the speaker reels, scissor reels, whatever you call them, you could literally change your clothes 3 times, position yourself a little different, like it's a separate talk, like it's clips, have some put them together, and you throw together a 1 to 3 minute clip of you doing different pieces of your talk, and you have a speaker reel. It's a lot more acceptable now. I mean, obviously being on stage in your speaker reel will speak more volumes, but virtual is now very much acceptable. They just didn't want to know that you can speak and that you're intelligent and you know what you're talking about. That's all they really want.
Yeah. And then you have some kind of presence, right?
Exactly.
So
they can see your energy.
Wendy, before we run out of time, I know people probably have more questions, but I wanted to make sure that you talked about the stage that you have created that you may need speakers for in 2024. Can you talk a bit about that?
So as I was creating my programs for my speakers, there's always this area that comes up where I meet people who are like, you know what, I really have a great story, but it's not something I want to teach. Like go to an organization and get paid for. I don't think it's going to get paid for. But it's also not attached to like my coaching business. So there's this area for just inspirational stories where people just don't have that agenda of getting paid to speak. And I thought, you know what it is? It's people who, I call it a when moment. It's when everything changed in your life. It's that moment where it's catapulted, right? Everything. So usually we'll have more than one, but your when moments add up to basically your when story. So I wanted to create this stage, which is kind of like a TEDx. It's a branded stage where, they'll get coached by me. You'll get 6 weeks of coaching with me to create your talk. It's up to 20-minute talk. And it'll be in, we're looking around the Brookfield, Wisconsin area right now with the gentleman I'm working with for the videography, but it's recorded. And the difference between what I'm creating in a TEDx is you can use it for promotional purposes. So you get your footage to do what you want with. So there's a whole professional camera crew, audio, the whole work. So there's no restrictions. And we're creating a branded YouTube page where these videos will go up, and then your links can go in there. So there's another place where people can find you in your business. So I just thought it's kind of like TEDx, like kind of on steroids is what I was trying to create for people who just really have incredible stories. They've been through some stuff, and it's like there's this moment in time. It's like that before and after effect where you can see where things really change and you have this story to share. So that's the stage I created. Originally, it was launching this March, but my coach, I think a good coach always has a coach. He's like, Wendy, you're the paid stage speaking coach. This is going to water down your messaging. You need to stick to what you know. I'm like, I know, but this is just such a great idea. Let me do it. And so we agreed we would just push it back a little bit. So I'm looking at maybe launching this more into the fall now, maybe even winter next year for the training and then to create the stage. But I already have people that are signed up and are ready to go. So I'm excited about it. It's called whenstories.com. That's the website. If you're interested, you can still go on and apply. And then when we do launch it, I'll have applications, for people who want to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted you to mention that because I think for this group in particular, we all have those stories. Those stories are all in our books, I call it, in when I teach how to craft stories that connect, I call it the turning point. It's that moment when something changed for you. And after that, some transformation, came about in your life. So we're all about transformation in this group. And so I thought that was a really appropriate stage for people in this group.
Yeah.
When
and your story
stories. Yeah. When stories. Yeah. Great. So
Yeah,
thank you, Wendy, for that. And also, I know some people need to hop off early, so I'm gonna make a little pitch here too, to join our Facebook community if you have not already. And I'm putting that into the chat along with a free gift. So if you have not started working on your book yet, or you want to start working on your next one, this workbook is really a great one to help you kind of organize your thoughts and maybe overcome a little imposter syndrome if you think that you don't have enough of a story to tell. This will help draw that out. So that's the Make a Ripple guidebook. And please join us on Facebook. It's a really nice, fun group of authors, many of whom are here in this call right now. We have a happy hour, which is the third Thursday of every month. That's at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. And that's next Thursday. So not this week, but next week. So, okay. Who else has more questions? I think we had another couple of questions. Vicky asked, are your speaking fees the same for Zoom versus in person?
Every speaker does this a little bit different. So when I talk to speakers, I always ask them that question. For mine, I don't do the same. I usually do reduce it. Not quite by half, but just about by half personally. Most of mine do want me in person, so I very seldom have to do virtual. And it's hard for me with an inspirational talk through virtual because the energy in the room is so different in talking to people. People got their cameras off. It's just, so I do, charge less, but some speakers, and I agree with this too, they're like, I'm bringing the same value to their audience. So they don't reduce their fee. So it's just a matter of what you're comfortable with. And that's the great part about the paid speaking arena. You can speak as often or as little as you want. You can travel or not travel. So you get lots of choices in your business with doing this if you're just using it for additional income. I love that this gives you so much more control of what you're doing. So Krista said, I may have missed it, but are you still taking coaching clients? Yeah. So if it's okay, I'll leave my link here.
Go ahead.
Oops, make sure I got the right word. There we go. I do one-on-one coaching. Usually it's a 6-month one-on-one coaching. And I also do 3-day boot camps. And with the boot camp, we walk through like creating your signature talk, how to shift what you already know to get on the paid stages. Day 2, we go through where to look and how to find. So I give you my email system of how I reach out, what I say, and how to get booked, what to charge, how to contract, how to get your deposits, all that fun stuff. And then on day 3, we do actually record virtually. Everyone has 5 to 15 minutes to speak. And then everyone who's on that call, on that boot camp, gives a testimonial. So the goal is that you get to walk away, with everything you need to start applying for speaking gigs. And again, I mean, if you're starting out at 1,500, you can't lose. So I always make sure that my fees are reasonable, that you make all your money back after you work with me.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Krista.
I just have a question for you, Wendy. I have heard, so I did a few speaking things years ago, the couple years ago, the freebie things. And like you said, you feel like, oh, I'll just, do that. And and the imposter thing, and I had not finished my book. So I focused on finishing my book first, which I got out a few months ago.
Yeah.
But a couple people have mentioned speaking agents. Did you use a speaking agent? Is it worth it? What do they do?
So speaking agents will find and book speaking gigs for you. My advice has always been make sure you can book yourself first. Because in my eyes, and again, this is not true for everybody, but in my eyes, when I'm reaching out to companies to book me, I know the things that I need to say to get me booked. I know my past, so like if it's a health type of association, I worked in a hospital for 20 years. I can add that on my email so they know it's relatable. I'm going to understand their needs better. Somebody who doesn't know you, and I know they'll probably do like an interview process. But once I know I can get booked, I do have someone on Will's team who does book me sometimes. So when Will Bowen because he's in the higher range fees, obviously he's a celebrity. When they can't afford him, they send them to me. So I do kind of use an agent through that, but I also reach out on my own. But I tried to hire someone before to work like on commission, and they were never able to get me booked. I think it's that personal touch. And then also the other, if you're reaching out and someone's interested, get them on a phone call or a Zoom, because then they get to know you, who you are, feel your energy. This way they know what they're getting, and they'll love it. They'll love you and be like, oh yeah, here, take all of our money.
Okay, I'll quote you on that.
Right. Take all our money. Yeah. But I mean, you can definitely try speaker agencies. I mean, they do work for some speakers. I just have never depended on one myself, but again, this is a field where everybody works a little different.
That was helpful though. I agree with the personal touch, trying that first. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Wendy, the question I had was about selling from stage. Like when you've already been paid, is that a no-no? Can you sell from stage, or is it more of a like, if you're interested in what I have to say, come talk to me kind of thing? The super soft sell.
And that'll depend on who you're working with. So generally it's a no sell stage. Like when you're getting paid to speak, usually there's no selling. But again, if you're leveraging your fee, if they can't pay you that much, say, okay, can I give them a free resource? At least get people into your email who are interested in what you're talking about. So you're able to do that. Most speakers now are using something called Talkadot. And what this is it's the last slide on your slideshow, and it's feedback. So they'll scan the QR code, and it just asks them, like, how did I do? Did you get something of value from this? Are you somebody that hires speakers? If so, would you be interested in bringing me in? So it's kind of a lead magnet for you then. So this is becoming a lot more known as this platform. Is called Talkadot. So I can put that in there. I just signed up myself. And I'm seeing a lot more speakers are using this because especially with associations, you get feedback, which is great. You want honest feedback. Everyone's saying you rah, rah, you're wonderful. It's great. But if you need work, you need work, and you need people to tell you that. But it's a great way to find more speaking gigs. Yes. And you could do free or paid version of this.
I just heard about it this week. You're the second person who's told me about it. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So we're getting to the end of our time, and I want to respect everyone's time. I like to end on time. So would you guys do me a favor and put into the chat something that you found valuable today, that you're happy to know, you're grateful for, that you learned today, so that we can, this gives Wendy a little feedback and me too, to know what kinds of things that were valuable to you. I know for me, you just go ahead and type them in the chat if you guys want. I know for me, Wendy, just hearing like actual numbers was really refreshing. It just seems to be such a mystery about what to charge and how to do all these things. And so you've really taken a lot of that sort of scary unknown out of it for me anyway.
Yeah. And you'll see it like, oh, become a 6-figure speaker. That's great. And that's very, who doesn't want to be a 6-figure speaker? But like realistically, it comes down to how often you want to speak on those stages, what you're going to charge. Do you want to travel? I'm at that point now where I don't want to travel, 10 times a year to speak. I'm a homebody. I like being here. I've got 2 dogs that I don't like to have, babysitters for, and I have a grandson. So I don't want to be gone all the time. So yeah, 6 figures is great, but there's a lot of work behind the scenes when they're telling you that. So I
Yeah.
like to be more realistic. Like someone wants to pay me $1,500 to speak for an hour and it's not far for me to drive. I'm not going to sneeze at that amount. I mean, it's not nothing. $1,500 is not like they're paying you pennies, you
Right.
know?
Well, and you position that as an additional income stream, not your only income.
Yes, exactly.
Just like
Exactly.
being an author is not our only income stream, I call
Right.
it part of the ecosystem. It's part of what you do and how you do it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so let's see. Charles says all the people on this having great stories to tell is fantastic. John says tremendous resources for finding paid stages. Wonderful session. Thank you, Wendy and Amy. Vicky says grateful for an inspiration to take the leap into getting speaking gigs. Will says inspiration is the number one topic groups are looking for. Yeah, that is a huge takeaway. Huge takeaway. I think
Awesome.
that's so heartwarming for me because we're all, I think, inspirational. Sarah,
Yeah.
places to find gigs. Thank you, Wendy and Amy. Lynette says the resources on how and where to find speakers. Alexandra, the nugget about inspiration being the top topic. Yep. Charles, great resources and experiential info. So yeah, we got lots and lots of feedback here. So I don't have time to read it all, but thank you everyone for taking time out of your day to spend it with us. Hopefully you have found something that was a little spark to get you out there speaking more often, and getting paid for it is just a bonus. So yeah, thank you again. And we'll see you hopefully at the happy hour next week. If not, we'll see you in some of the events coming up early next year. All right. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much.